It's time for The Drive with Q on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. Now, here's Q.
Good afternoon, everyone. 3 o'clock straight up on the East Coast is indeed a Wednesday edition of The Drive with Q. Right here on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town. Of course, we are coming at you live inside the Coastal Sports Network studios. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quinones. Angel Martinez behind the glass producing the show. Keeping us on the air, we are powered by ION TV, and check them out for all your traffic news and weather alerts and reports. We'll take you up to 2 hours to play with. And I was on the road with a big weekend with the fights in Philadelphia and then back down to Maryland and now back in the saddle with you guys, and always enjoyed. And certainly when I'm going today, I feel as though I miss you guys. I certainly always appreciate you guys chiming in when we're not on the air. And that's really a testament to what you guys think of the show. And I don't even know where to go today, to believe it or not, as I kind of wipe the brow, right? 3:40 Lloyd Vance is going to join us. And it's NFL heavy, right? I have to tap into what's going on in college football. We'll touch on the Michigan situation. I will touch on Coach Prime, but as always, get in on the conversation, 727-858-6650. We're powered by good friends over at Play It Again Sports in Deptford, New Jersey. So NFL, we know it cuts deep, cut down day, getting the rosters, trimming the rosters. And I always find this interesting when it comes to the NFL. When players get cut, fans of other teams will turn around and be like, you got to grab this guy. You got to pick him up. I can't believe that. Isn't there a reason some of these guys are getting cut? Is it possible that maybe they just can't play anymore? I mean, it is the NFL. They do recycle the players. And look, I know there have been some notable cuts here and there, and it happens, and guys will probably latch on to teams, but that's the NFL, man. I mean, this is exactly, where we're at. And I'm telling you right now, aside from the cuts, right, and some of these injuries, like Mitchell just went on the IR. He's out for the season with the 49ers. Pittsburgh made a quarterback decision we'll get into. You had Zappy, you had White, the backups, DeVito's, Tommy Cutlets back with the Giants. But aside from some of the injuries and the cuts, how about this? How about some of these head coaches coming out and for some inexplicable reason, basically, naming quarterbacks already? And we'll get in a situation in Pittsburgh. We'll get in a situation in New England, because I'm telling you right now, I feel bad. And I know Pete Shepard's tuning in, Boston guy, Pats fan. He's probably just maybe throwing his, his cafe, his coffee, or maybe his ice cold beverage across the room right now. His Pats, his Patriots, they're going to stink. They're going to spit the bit big time. I don't know what the hell that head coach is thinking already, Gerard Mayo. Again, talking about who's out playing this guy, who's out playing that guy. I mean, come on, man. You have to figure out a way. If you're a head coach in the NFL, you want to keep it close to the vest. Do you not? So as far as the NFL as a whole, kickoff next Thursday. We've gone through the preseason, and we'll do a lot of our predictions picks next week heavy, even though we got a short week with Labor Day Monday. We'll go heavy on Wednesday. We'll go heavy on Friday. Wednesday will be the day where we'll get into the divisional playoff winners and everything like that. And then don't forget, back your play. We'll sprinkle that in on a Tuesday and Thursday. But, this is kind of where I'm at with the NFL. I feel as though talking heads will come about, and they'll come up with the list because everyone loves list. Who doesn't love a list, right? Who doesn't love a list? Husbands out there, you got the grocery list. Little kids, you got the Christmas list, right? Maybe if you had your hand in the mafioso, you have a hit list. I don't know, but who doesn't love lists? Lists are part of life, are they not? The book of the month club, there's your list. Who the hell's coming up with these lists for overrated quarterbacks? Somebody please talk to me. Who is coming up with these lists that we're creating when it comes to overrated quarterbacks in the NFL, right? Because again, it's always great when the players come out and they're saying, I would love for the players to actually say it, but that's never going to happen. So how about this? Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Tua were the most voted upon the NFL's most overrated quarterbacks in a player survey. So you got a Buffalo Bills face of the franchise superstar quarterback in Josh Allen, the most overrated quarterback in the league. Now, this survey was conducted by ESPN. So 11 players voted Allen as the most overrated. He replaces or placed ahead of Jalen Hurts. And then Tua, for you fish fans down there in Florida, on the other side of Miami, garnered 10 votes apiece. And it's not really so much about Allen because I don't agree with that, but I feel as though Jalen Hurts is in a, let's just say he's in a situation this year where he is going to have to flat out ball out, because you had that report come out where an NFL defensive coach said, quote, "The word is out there on Jalen Hurts' weakness." Now think about that moment, right? Think about that. If they can't run the ball, Hurts is not effective, a defensive coordinator said. He can't handle pure pass. When he got hurt, he became more immobile and they had to throw the ball. He showed what he was. I think they might have paid a guy that they're going to have a really good team around to win games. I mean, think about that for a moment. Philadelphia Eagles banked a lot of money, stock and equity, in Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, maybe the narrative, the perception on Jalen Hurts changes if they win the Super Bowl a couple of years late against Kansas City and Bradbury doesn't have the penalty or the phantom call, whatever. But last year, I felt as though the locker room was divided. It was fractured. They had the big start. Everything was going well. Then they hit the skids. They had to slide. The secondary got exposed. Hurts was banged up, inconsistent. The offense was ineffective. They didn't utilize their weapons. A.J. Brown was barking. Smith wasn't happy. Sirianni was doing his nonsense on the sidelines. And then, boom, there you have Jalen Hurts, right? Because the quarterback's always going to take the brunt of it. That's just how it is in the NFL. You ask any other position player in the NFL, the team lives and dies by the quarterback. And when you're paying a quarterback $150, $200, $250 million, they better friggin' perform. They better be able to break through and bust through and win some games and play good football, consistent football, solid football. And I can't sit here and be objective and honest and tell you that Jalen Hurts is an overrated quarterback. I don't believe that to be the case. I don't. And remember, players are saying this, right? So take it for what it's worth. You might have a couple players that Hurts pretty much torched them and they feel a certain way. I don't know. Josh Allen is turnover prone. We know that. Josh Allen has the most turnovers in the NFL since he entered the league in 2018. 102, which is just ridiculous. But again, you take the bad with the good. And in this case, the good is 221 combined passing, rushing, and receiving touchdowns during that time frame. That's second behind who? Patrick Mahomes. Right? So I think Josh Allen is a very good quarterback. Again, I don't think he's overrated. I don't think Tua is an overrated quarterback. I just think there is this perception, this negative perception against Tua because of his size, his height. You know, he has to have speed and weapons around him. Everything has to be perfect. The pocket cannot collapse. He has to have time to throw the football. He's got to get the ball out of his hands quickly. He's putting up monster yardage for the Miami Dolphins over the last several years. So those three quarterbacks, I wholeheartedly disagree. Maybe we can say overhyped, but I don't think they're overrated. I really don't feel that way. I think, though, what we're doing now is we're looking at, let's say Josh Allen, for instance, right? We're looking at Josh Allen. We're saying, you need to lead Buffalo to a deep playoff run. And if you can't do it, then the knock on you is you're not a winner. I mean, Josh Allen needs to get the Bills to a Super Bowl. Tua is still young in his career where you're starting to see that the Dolphin franchise is reaping the rewards of the playmaking quarterback. And Jalen Hurts already led the Philadelphia Eagles to a Super Bowl appearance. And I think that is why I think that hurts him. As crazy as this sounds, sometimes you can arrive too early. And I think that's exactly what happened with the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts. I mentioned it with the Giants. When the Giants turned around and they had the nice little run and they got in the playoffs and they went on the road and they turned around and they beat the Minnesota Vikings. They arrived a tad early, but we knew they weren't really a good team. Eagles pretty much burst on the scene. We knew they had the playmakers. Everyone was talking about, hey, enshrine the head coach already into the Hall of Fame. You got a franchise quarterback. You got to pay the kid. Wait to see what he does. Boom. And what happens? They come up a couple plays short against Kansas City. And I think when you have that type of run and that type of success, all of a sudden, people will look and say, you have arrived too soon. And the fact that they had such great success early, it almost makes it seem as though it's expected, right? I mean, you start your job, you're the new kid on the block. And all of a sudden, you are just a sales machine. You're closing accounts. You're putting money in the back pocket. You're making the company money. The expectation is you are going to be able to do this, or you have to do this pretty much 5 days a week, 365 a calendar year. Hey, man, you're locked in. We want this kid to grow with us. We want this guy to be part of the management team, the sales force going forward, 10, 15 years, 20-year career with said company. But when you don't perform like that consistently every single solitary day, and nobody can. Hell, Michael Jordan had off nights. Tom Brady had off nights. They're rare, but they happen. In sports, though, when you have off nights or you have stretches, fans, players, teammates, ownership group, GMs, head coaches, maybe they start to question your ability. They question your talent. They question, can you rise to the challenge? They question, can you do it consistently? Because that's always the key. The best players in any sport are the ones that are consistently consistent. They're always consistent. You know what they're going to give you. We call them, right, he's a pro's pro. Jalen Hurts, the squad starts off like gangbusters, and then they falter. What was it? They dropped 6 of 7, 5 of 6, and then they no-showed against Tampa Bay. And then you had all the rumblings, reports, not really going to bat for the head coach, not saying what the media wants you to say. So everyone all of a sudden, boom, he's overrated. Well, this is a huge season for Jalen Hurts. This is. I mean, I think to say this is it's an understatement, if you ask me. If we're going to sit here and say that it's not a huge season for the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts. I believe it is a big-time understatement. And I believe we're glossing over a lot of issues with this squad. But I'm not going to throw Hurts along with the other two quarterbacks that I mentioned as overrated. I mean, then what does that mean about Dak Prescott? What has Dak Prescott won in his career? What does that mean about Trevor Lawrence? What does that mean about Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow? I mean, are we going to sit there and say all of a sudden these guys are overrated quarterbacks? Well, if you look at the body of work compared to Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, then you might say that. But it's like, how are we defining that word? Right? How do we define? See, when you label a player like this, the first thing that comes to mind is he's going to have a ridiculous season. He's going to flat out ball out. Or if he stumbles, then you're going to have the Monday morning quarterbacking crew come out, the talking heads on TV that got nothing better to do with their time, and say, told you so. Told you so. Look, Josh Allen, Tua, you got to cut down on the turnovers. We know that. But come on, man. Think about this. He's totaled over 40 touchdowns in an NFL record 4 straight seasons. NFL MVP votes 3 of those years. Dynamic player, his arms and his legs. Come on, the guy's going to give you 40-something touchdowns, 4,500 to 5,000 yards a season. It's not his fault that they haven't put a good team or a great team around him. And I don't want to hear this nonsense. Well, he's running wide receivers out of town. Diggs was a selfish player. We know that. We know that. So I don't really subscribe to this. I don't know what you guys think. Maybe you do. I don't. 727-858-6650. Just starting to crank it up on a Wednesday edition of The Drive with Q. Rich Quinones here. Angel Martinez behind the glass, producing the show, keeping us on the air, powered by our good friends over at Coastal Sports Network, SR 1029 FM. The Game. Don't forget to download the app. And of course, our NFL talk from our good friends at Play It Again Sports. PlayItAgainSports.com, Deptford, New Jersey. Also, Acorn Oak for all your digital marketing and branding needs. Lloyd Vance in about 20. Your calls and texts as well, 727-858-6650. On the other side, some news and notes from the NFC East. Another reason why I believe the Giants are going to be a horrible, horrible team. We will get into that. Pittsburgh has named a quarterback. Was it the right choice? Selection. And in hour number 2, got to get into Michigan, got to get into Coach Prime as well, because you want to talk about being thin-skinned. Neon Dayon showing a little bit of the thin skin as well. 727-858-6650. That'll get you involved on a Wednesday edition of The Drive with Q. 20 past 3 o'clock hour. Quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today, I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Call or text the show at 727-858-6650. Now, back to Q.
All right, 3:20. Welcome, everyone, back to a Wednesday edition of The Drive with Q. Rich Quinones here. Angel Martinez behind the glass. Thank you, Southwest Florida, for tuning us in and catching up. And we love the fan base and our listeners and viewers from out west, and certainly New York, New Jersey, PA, Boston alike. 727-858-6650. Got some Facebook comments floating in. I will get to them as well. But yeah, it's an understatement. This is a big opportunity for the Philadelphia Eagles franchise. It really is, because we know what's going on with Dallas, right? CeeDee Lamb finally gets the bag. We talked a little bit about this last week. Jerry Jones waxing poetic about the deals that he's making, and he's not new to the game. He's no stranger to this. Well, I mean, look, you want to go pay CeeDee Lamb, go pay CeeDee Lamb. I think he's a fascinating wide receiver. I think he's a wonderful playmaker. 4 years, $136 million. Okay. So Micah Parsons, Dak Prescott, got to pay these guys, got to get a deal done. I mean, listen, Dak Prescott is in the final year of his contract. Okay. And Dak Prescott kind of burst on the scene as well. Are we more inclined to say a player is overrated because of, say, where they were. Like, is it fair? Like, I don't believe Dak Prescott is a great quarterback. I think there was a time he was a very good quarterback, and he's put up very consistent numbers. He has. But he's also prone to a lot of turnovers, right? I mean, did we not, talk about that as well? But he's put up some gaudy numbers. But Dak Prescott wasn't a top 10 selection. Dak Prescott was a 4th-round draft pick, 135, I believe, from the Dallas Cowboys. And he's going on to have a really nice career. But am I paying Dak Prescott $60 million a year? I'm not doing that. I'm not. And I know what the market says. I understand all that. I get it. I just, he's not that guy. Few are. I mean, if you look at the numbers that he put up, they weren't that bad. They weren't. But again, I think sometimes you got to go beyond the numbers. If you're the Dallas Cowboys, you got the star, you're, quote, America's team, the moniker that we love to hate. You got to do better than getting bounced in wildcard games. You got to do better than getting bounced in divisional round games. You got to get to an NFC championship. Hell, can you get to a Super Bowl? Is that too much to ask? And that's been the knock on the Dallas Cowboys franchise. So Jerry Jones is going to spend. He's going to throw money out there, He's going to do it. Toss around like Mayweather at the strip club. He doesn't care. It's raining all over the friggin' place. Okay, fine. But again, listen, it's not the end of the world if Dak Prescott goes to another team. It really isn't. We've seen franchise quarterbacks do that before. We don't like it as fans, but I'm sorry. I got to draw the line here. I mean, Dak Prescott, to me, 60-something odd $1 million. I can't do it. I think they can pay him. I think they should pay him, but I also believe there's a number that you're not going past. And I'm sorry. I'm not paying this guy $60-70 million. No. No way, man. Are you freaking kidding me? And what happens now is you have to look at, say, the Trevor Lawrence deal. That's the problem. Trevor Lawrence, because if history repeats itself, an even bigger number within the reach for Prescott, $60 million per season. Think about that for a moment. That's crazy. It's crazy. Trevor Lawrence inked a 5-year, $275 million deal. So 55 per season average, right? Tack on deal. Doesn't technically begin to 2026. But we already know that the context is set. So that's the rate for a top shelf quarterback. $55 million. Daniel Jones is friggin' making $40 million. Which right now seems like a big time mistake. I mean, you look at Patrick Mahomes, 10-450. Joe Burrow, 5 for 275. Lawrence, 5, 275. Justin Herbert, 5, 262. Lamar Jackson, 5, 260. Well, what do they all have in common besides Patrick Mahomes? They haven't won anything. All these quarterbacks on this list, Goff, Watson, Murray, Hurts, Allen, Jackson, Herbert, Lawrence, Burrow. They haven't won squat. Burrow and Jalen Hurts have gotten to a Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson hasn't. This guy's an NFL MVP. We're going to sit there and say Lamar Jackson's an overrated quarterback? It goes back to what I mentioned a while ago. You tag the contract with the player. That's what you do. We tag the contract with the player, and it has to. It has to, at the end of the day, make sense. It's exactly what we do. It has to. We're programmed for that, are we not? This guy's making $160 million. He has to perform like that. This guy's making $275. He has to perform like that. I had a couple guys sit there and say, well, what are you getting on Daniel Jones for? Because Daniel Jones is making $160 million a year, $40 million, and he had, 30-something guaranteed? Because he's not a $40 million quarterback. He's not a $160 million quarterback. The Giants played Daniel Jones off of one decent season. One decent season, and then he follows it up by doing what? He got hurt because he's injury prone. It's not hating on the guy. It's not. But these quarterbacks, you guys think these quarterbacks are worth 50, 60, 70. At the end of the day, it's not my money. I don't care what they pay him. Big Mike chimes in. Dak isn't worth 50, 60, 70 million. He's probably going to be worth 50. But I'm not going 60, 70 because you have to look at the market right now. And that's where we're at. And that's why when you come up with these lists, right, these overrated lists, everyone friggin' loves the list. But again, define it. What are we defining overrated as? Because unless you're Patrick Mahomes, then every quarterback in the NFL is overrated because Patrick Mahomes is the guy that wins the most. Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback over the last several years that's going to AFC championships, that's going to Super Bowl, that's winning Super Bowls, that's Super Bowl MVP, that's league MVP. It's not Dak. It's not Lamar. It's not Aaron Rodgers. It's not Lawrence. It's not Herbert. It's not Burrow. It's not Hurts. Quarterback position, they're tagged with the wins and losses. That's just how it is. I mean, Russell Wilson, Pittsburgh comes out, and they're going to let him marinate. They're going to let him start. I think it's a mistake. I think, well, let me say this. Let me hedge. I think the reason they're going with Wilson first is because if he struggles, then you have an out to pull him to Fields. Where if Mike Tomlin was going to Fields first and he struggles, and you're going back to the veteran, the question on a Monday morning or a Tuesday morning for the presser would have been, well, how come you didn't start Russell Wilson, a veteran, in the first place? Mike Tomlin knows he's stuck between a rock and a hard place right now in Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin understands, as much as he has clout with the Pittsburgh franchise, as much as he's won and he's been a consistent head coach with the Pittsburgh franchise, this is new terrain for Mike Tomlin. This is new terrain because it didn't work out with Pickett, and he had the benefit of having Roethlisberger pretty much his entire career. So now all of a sudden, here we go. Here we go. And it really seemed as though, I felt as though Justin Fields, if you ask me right now, who would I start if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers? I think Russell Wilson is cooked. I think he's a shot quarterback. I think he's done. Okay? And I would have started Justin Fields. I really do. Because all this talk about, quarterback competition, hell, Russell Wilson was banged up. He's dealing with that calf injury, which can turn into a tear at any moment. And here's the problem that you run into with a guy like Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin is weighing risk to reward. That's all he's doing right now in Pittsburgh. That's all he's doing. And you guys should be smart enough to see that. It's a classic example, right? Think about this. You have basically young broadcasters. You guys might be tuning in. We've all been there 15, 20 years ago, whatever. You're a young, aspiring broadcaster. You keep sending out the resumes. You keep putting together the air checks. You're waiting to get that call back, whether it's criticisms, critiques, or, hey, you might have an opportunity for a job interview. Maybe producer, director, anchor, update anchor. It's going to take a while for you to get on air. But you're clamoring, man. You're clamoring. You're doing what you need to do. You go to the interview, we're going to go in a different direction. Why? Because we're looking for someone with experience. So we've all been there. I said it years ago. Well, hire me so I can get experience, right? It doesn't work like that. Okay, fine. Mike Tomlin is thinking the same thing. In Mike Tomlin's world, experience is always going to trump potential. I mean, think about that. I mean, are we really going to sit here, truth serum, and say that Russell Wilson outperformed Justin Fields in the preseason? Come on, stop. It's nonsense. It's absolutely nonsense. And Mike Tomlin, and I think Mike brought up a good point. We'll punch it up in a second. I think Mike Tomlin also understands, man, this is uncharted territory for me. Never had a losing season, right? Even though he did sign a 3-year contract extension, that doesn't mean diddly. If it goes south for Mike Tomlin, you might see a change in Pittsburgh. So now he's starting Wilson. Wilson's going to struggle. You know that. And I said it on Back Your Play, and I'll say it on the drive. Justin Fields is going to be the quarterback. And if coached up, I think Justin Fields has a good opportunity to excel. I really do. 727-858-6650, 727-858-6650. That'll get you involved. 33 past 3 o'clock hour. Lloyd Vance in about 5. We'll take you up to 5 o'clock as well. But really, a lot of NFL today. You know, these quarterbacks, the list, overrated, not rated, underrated. It's all subjective, man. It really is. The NFC East is going to be a compelling division. And here's another reason why I believe this. So I listened to Joe Schoen, Giants GM, and the Giants decided that they're going to bring back Tommy Cutlets, Drew Lock, injured, Daniel Jones, a starter. Well, you've got a situation, and again, I know we're Giant fans. They're probably going to look at me and say, what are you smoking? But just hear me out for a second, please. Please, I implore you to just hear me out for a second. The Cleveland Browns pretty much have their roster set, right? If you think about this with the Cleveland Browns, with their depth chart. So if Thompson Robinson makes a team and you've got Jameis Winston, if I am, if I'm the Giants, honestly, I put in a call for Cleveland. I'll give you a 6th rounder for Jameis Winston as a backup, because at least Jameis Winston's not afraid to throw the football. He's going to turn it over. But if you want an aerial attack with Daboll and the gang, and you want to, it might be a fun, 30 touchdown, 30 interception, 5,000 yard season offensively that the Giants have seen in quite some time. Right? I mean, think about that. And there's also talk, again, as crazy as it sounds, that Denver might be in the play for Jameis Winston. Now, Sean Payton already came out and said Bo Nix is going to be the starter. But when Cleveland basically finalized their 53-man roster, they used 5 different starting quarterbacks last year. And it was a hell of a season. They had a fun season, right? So Dorian Thompson-Robinson is going to remain on the 53-man roster. So you got Robinson serving as backup to Deshaun Watson, who, if you listen to me over the year, I think he's done too. So you got a backup in Jameis Winston, Tyler Huntley. Okay. So if Denver's interested in Jameis Winston, the Giants should be interested in Jameis Winston because of Daniel Jones's injury-prone history. But if Denver goes out and grabs him, you got a pretty viable option as a backup to Bo Nix, a young quarterback. And it's compelling. It is. I don't believe Daniel Jones is playing 17 games. I don't. I believe Daniel Jones is going to struggle this year. And this is the point I wanted to make on Joe Schoen. I started the show by saying this. When there are reports that the Giants are going to be very active when it comes to the waiver wire, what does that tell you? What does that tell you? I mean, they're trying to pick up guys that couldn't latch on to their teams. Hodges, nice receiver. I was a little surprised that he got cut, but that's a crowded receiver room. Hell, Sterling Shepard couldn't latch on with Tampa Bay. The Giants should have never gave him a roster spot last year. But point being, if I'm a fan and I got to hear my GM say, we're going to scour the wire, you're trying to put together crumbs. Trying to collect crumbs off the floor to bake a cake. That's a hard pass for me, man. That's a hard pass. Let me dive into some of these comments on Facebook before we take a time out. What do we got here? Our good friend Joey D. Summer Point listening in as well. Oh, and he's down on the beach today. So there you go. You got to download that app, my friend. Q, I know you mentioned this overrated list. I would actually agree with you for once. You look at Josh Allen. He's an extremely athletic quarterback. He puts up big numbers. Yes, he turns the ball over. But again, going to your point with Jalen Hurts, I wouldn't say it's overrated. I wouldn't say it's overhyped. I believe that they paid him a substantial amount of money, and everyone's looking about how they went south last year, and they're pinning it all on Hurts. I don't think it's fair. Where's the blame to Sirianni? Enjoy the show. We talked about it enough times last year. We talked about it enough times last year. Nick Sirianni's to blame as well. They had issues with the coordinators. And the players towards the end of the season quit. That was one of the major reasons I thought Nick Sirianni was not going to come back. That's just, again, my thought. All right, 40 past 3 o'clock hour. Lloyd Vance on the other side. Keep it locked in. We'll get his thoughts on what's going on in the NFL. I want to get into a lot of these Facebook comments as well. You guys can hit me up on X at RichQ on Q. But so good eyeballs, keeping us tuned in. We always appreciate that. So we'll get Lloyd's thoughts on, again, some of these cuts in the NFL that aren't really staggering, but you got to trim those rosters down. Wilson named the starter. Is that the right move? Winston, perhaps trade bait to who? And really his thoughts on the NFC East and how much of a microscope does he believe is going to be on the Philadelphia Eagles? So we'll get into that as well. 727-858-6650. I've got to remind you the drive with Q on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, powered by Coastal Sports Network and also Ion TV, brought to you by Play It Again Sports, 1450 Deptford Road. Don't forget, back to school, Labor Day, they have all the used sports equipment, new gear. They got all the baseball, the football gear, the cleats, the socks, the helmets, everything, the baseball hats, the bats, everything you name it, you can order online, you can pick up, you can drop off. They'll give you some good value for your sports equipment, used and more. Don't forget, check them out, 1450 Clements Bridge Road. All right, 40 past 3, Lloyd Vance on the other side.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute?
When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can, making sure they're safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself. At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.
You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
All right, class. Let's hear what everyone did this weekend. Jill?
Well, I raised my older sister to a big oak tree. It was at least 100 years old. My mom said I must have set a record or something. And then we went down by a stream and perched up on this huge rock and saw all of these little minnows swimming around way below us. And then I rescued my little brother from an evil slug king who was guarding him at the bush fortress. And my sister and I brought him back to our super twig fort for safety. And then we all laid out and told stories until it got dark. And the Big Dipper led us all the way home.
Wow. Awesome. Where were you, Jill?
Yeah. We went to the forest. It's not that far away. Anyone want to come this weekend?
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week and find the fun, adventurous you. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Don't forget to get social with us. Follow Q at RichQ on Q. And now, back to Q.
85 degrees, and of course I gotta have a hot piping cup of coffee from my good friends at Fresh Roasted. By the way, save 20% off your first order. You promo code BYP. Back your play for the Sports Gambling Pop, which is also on Sports Radio 102.9 FM. Oh, shameless plug. 727-858-6665. See what the folks are out there saying. Mike chimes in, killing as always. Q, great show. Appreciate you, my friend. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. Kind words. Thank you. Until I say something that pisses somebody off, then they come in and say, you know, shut up. What the hell are you talking about, clown? Yeah, it works both ways. 727-858-6650. So let me get to a couple more. Let me double check. And I know Lloyd's going to be chiming in any moment. What do we got? Landon on Facebook chiming in, listening from Delaware, the first state. Q, good to hear you back on the airways. Used to listen to you on 1290. The Ticket used to drive by and honk the horn, but in any event, Dallas fan here. And once again, I can hear you're still killing the Dallas Cowboys for 20 years. You haven't given them any credit. Dak Prescott is indeed a $40 to $50 million quarterback. He beats the shit out of your trash quarterback. All right, well, there you go. So that tells you right there that was definitely a guy that used to chime in when I was on 1290 The Ticket, right? I mean, is it necessary dropping the, just dropping the nastiness right there? How about this with a new backdrop? Diplomas all over the place. Call him MD the Doctor, Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, kind enough to join us. What's going on?
Doing good, man. I told Angel, I said, he told me to get a new background. So I, jumped on that, and it's good we're hearing from some of our old people back in the old Delaware days, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm waiting for someone to have a smart-ass comment and say, what do you got a doctorate in BS? I'm just looking right there. Oh, my God. So, all right, NFL cut down. And again, Lloyd does a great job. Give him a follow on X, but you hear him every Monday night, 8 to 9 with Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, and getting a lot of good eyeballs on X and on YouTube. So congrats on the success of that. Let's start. All right, listen, NFL cut down, right? The usual suspects. Here we go, guys that we just thought were second, third tier kind of guys. Any name or names, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but any names or names kind of stand out where you were a little shocked? I mean, if you want to throw something out with the Eagles, so be it, but just your initial thoughts on cut down.
Yeah, Q, it's what we kind of expected. And most of the teams have their top 45 guys, and it's about those last 8 spots that they're trying to pull together. Obviously, you always want to follow whether a guy was drafted high or how much money he's making, because he's probably got a better opportunity to make the team. So that said, there were a couple teams I looked at, the Kansas City Chiefs in particular. When they brought Juju Smith-Schuster in at the receiver position, I knew probably one of the or two of the receivers' days were numbered. Sure enough, you see Kadarius Toney. They finally stepped away from him.
Let me stop you for a second. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up. What a freaking clown. All I had was Giant fans last year crying to me, can you believe they jettisoned this guy, the best? The guy's going to be out of the league. I mean, think about it. He's a clown. And the funny thing is he had an iconic play in the Super Bowl with that punt return for 65 yards. But that's going to be all forgotten at the end of the day because that's, by the way, another failed draft pick by the Giants. But go ahead, continue.
Yeah, and this is who we're talking about, the bottom of the roster type of guys. And yes, they may make some splash plays here and there. And some people may say, well, why is a guy like Sky Moore, who really hasn't done anything, how's he making team? But as I said earlier, when a guy's drafted high or he's making a lot of money, they're going to get the benefit of the doubt over a couple of years on a roster. So, there may have been a couple surprises, but it's mostly like Bailey Zappi being cut by the Patriots, that type of deal, back it in, guys, undrafted free agents. You wish everybody had an opportunity to have a job, but it's going from 90 to 53. Maybe some of them can get tied on with the UFL or some other type of league, but definitely not a lot of surprise. But one I did want to talk to you about is Bradbury survived with the Eagles, but I still think eventually he's just not going to be a starter on this team. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Again, man. When players are traded and they have big seasons, again, everything turn around and they say, man, listen, this guy's great. Why'd they get rid of him? We get a 609. Good to hear my guy. All right, there we go. We'll appreciate that, Mr. 609, as opposed to Mr. 305, but we appreciate it nonetheless. Let us know where you're texting in from, by the way, and your name. And yeah, man, give us some comments as well on your thoughts on what we're talking about. Always appreciate the love, though. But like Bradbury was that example. I can't believe the Giants get rid of this guy. Here we go. He's going to be an all-pro. You get old fast, man. Right? You get old fast, and he's a liability back there. So you're right about that. I want to get into the quarterbacks for a moment. So Pittsburgh comes out. Mike Tomlin, I mentioned this before he came on the air, Lloyd. He's more inclined to feel, I guess you can say, more comfortable with the experience, right, than maybe the talent, right? Experience is going to trump the talent. He goes to Russ Wilson. I understand why he did it. Stay face a little bit unless Wilson can't marinate and they got to go to Justin Fields. But if you're going to try to sell me this bill of goods that Justin Fields was outplayed by Russell Wilson, who was banged up during training camp and preseason, that's a crock. I think Justin Fields, and I mentioned it on BYP with you, I think Justin Fields should be the starting quarterback week 1 of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, as we know, it's Mike Tomlin's choice and Khan, the GM there, and they looked at a number of factors, Q. And I think the biggest thing is just his experience level. Justin Fields is kind of a wild card at this point in his career. Yes, he led all quarterbacks in rushing, and he's going to make some big plays, but he's also going to turn the football over. And that's what Russell Wilson's not going to do at this stage in his career, hopefully. I know he's mostly checked down Charlie.
There you go.
If he can protect the football and they can lean on that defense, which we know has some names and one of the best defenses out there, they can win some games ugly. And I'm talking about like 20-17 types of situations. The defense gets some turnovers, maybe some special teams touchdowns. But, it's tough to live on week in, week out that type of plan. So I do agree with you. Eventually, they'll probably just say, you know what, maybe to save the season, why not give the opportunity to the younger quarterback? But Russell Wilson's got a lot to prove. He's 35 years old. And we know how he looked in Denver. We know how he looked in the Seahawks. And the Broncos paid him $39 million basically to go away.
Yeah, so, okay, here we go. Here's where I hear what you're saying. They open up against Atlanta and Denver on the road. Then they have the Chargers. Then they have the Colts, Dallas, the Raiders, the Jets, the Giants, and they have a bye week. So depending upon where you think or you believe they might be, I don't know if I'm looking at their schedule. I'm trying to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games. If they're 2-6, 3-5, even if they're 3-5 and the offense is not putting up any points, how in the world can you sit there and allow Russ? Well, we got Christmas bells going on. What the hell's going on? Is this me? Where we get them? Where we get them? Angel, Lloyd, there we go. Oh, there it is. What happened?
It's not me.
Oh, all right. Oh, that's true. I mean, it could have been a service call for the internet that's really poured down your way today. We plug them on all of a sudden. I'm trying to get a hold of Angel Martinez. This is service 2 in Tampa. So going back to that, I feel though, when we're looking at Russell Wilson, we're looking at that offense. It stinks. It's stagnant. And I know that Mike Tomlin had got a contract extension, but hey, man, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's not fighting for his job. Right?
There's definitely going to be a lot of eyes on Mike Tomlin and this team. I'm not saying there's expectations, but his past history, not having a losing season, and you wonder about this team being stuck in neutral. Because let's face it, Q, this is a passing league. It's an offensive league where offensive minds are valued, and some of these defensive coaches, it's like, yeah, he's built a great defense, but you got to score points, and the NFL is all about scoring points nowadays, and would the Steelers think of going in a new direction? We know that they've only had 3 coaches over the past, I don't know, since 1960 something. But eventually, they have to say, okay, they haven't won a playoff game in God knows how long. And definitely they're going to have to do some internal looking if this season doesn't come together like they think. And when you talk about that offense, the offensive line is probably the biggest problem. They brought in Broderick Jones, a rookie who's really struggled all preseason. And then they only really have Harris and Pickens there. I know Warren's around, but he's a little banged up.
All right, what's going on in Cleveland right now? I mean, there's buzz that Denver, maybe the Giants. I believe the Giants should make a call for Winston. I mean, look, talk about a guy that's going to turn the ball over, but I kind of made the joke. It could be a fun season for the Giants, putting up 25 a game, 5,000 yards, 35 touchdowns, 45 picks. Who the hell cares? Because the fact that the GM is scouring the wire tells me all I need to know. Like, I ad nauseum, I don't know for the life of me how an objective Giant fan can look at this roster and objectively say they're going to win 8, 9, 10 games. What are they smoking? What are they popping? They got a gummy? They got a what's going on here? They want to get a little loopy? It makes absolutely no sense. So you've got a quarterback that has a history of injuries. Locke's already banged up. Tommy Cutlets, marinate somewhere else, man. I don't need to see that kid anymore. Nice story last year. You had your 50 minutes. Go away. I don't need 3 quarterbacks. I need viable options at the backup position. And Winston is an upgrade over those 2 combined. So if you're the Giants, hey man, here's a 6th-round draft pick, right? For Winston. Here you go. But what does the fans see that makes them believe that they're going to be a competitive team this year? Why? Because they were in Hard Knocks? I mean,
that's just blatantly rooting for the laundry queue, and these loyalists, you got to hand it to them. I couldn't do it. I couldn't go week in and week out and say, oh, they're going to win.
There's a difference being loyal, Lloyd. I'm loyal, but I have to be fair and objective. They stink. Sure. They still have issues with their offensive line. And what difference does it make of who they draft at the wide receiver position if the quarterback's basically always on his back?
Yeah, and that's the guys pounding their chest or at the bar next to you, pounding the bar saying, this is my team and I'm with them no matter what. Well, you know what? Joe Shane and Dave Ball, their jobs are on the line this season. You know what I mean? So it's like it's put up or shut up. And this roster, we've looked at it over and over again, looking at the NFC East a lot. There's just not a lot of talent there. Yes, Dexter Lawrence is there, and they also have Burns coming over from the Panthers, the pass rusher. And, you talk about Malik Neighbors, but there's just so many holes on this roster. I kind of agree with you. I think the over-under was around, 7 games? I think, I'd go with 6, 6 wins or so. But
now that's you're being absolutely generous. You're being absolutely generous. They have a very tough schedule. The Giants are sitting at 6.5. The other team in New York, the Jets, are sitting at 9.5. I mentioned that this list came out where players are naming quarterbacks that they believe are overrated. Okay. So now you've got Josh Allen. You've got Jalen Hurts. Oh, and I want to clarify, my guy Damon from Atlantic City, part of the AC Gamuts, was the one that was checking it to 6 and 9. All right, I believe he's a Cowboys fan too. So, I won't hold that against him, but we appreciate him tuning in. But anyway, you've got Hurts, you've got Josh Allen, and you got Tua. So they deem those as your 3 overrated quarterbacks. And I'm wondering how much stock you put in, right? We talk about a list all the time. We have fun with it. But I believe that they're very good quarterbacks. I also believe that 2 of the 3, Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen, come to Jesus moment with their franchises. Josh Allen, the window's closing in Buffalo, and Jalen Hurts, people are thinking that this kid was basically a one-trick pony, a one-year pony. So 1-year wonder. Where are you with those 2 that I just mentioned?
Yeah, definitely a spotlight's on both of them. And it's going to be tough for, I'll start with Josh Allen in particular, losing Diggs, Cook, you got to see in terms of the backfield, if he's able to step up. Keon Coleman, that young receiver that they got in the draft, is he going to be able to do something? But it's going to be back on Josh Allen to put the Superman cape on. Yes, the Bills have won that division 4 straight seasons, but there's a lot for him to carry. And I think turnovers factor into the fact that a lot of people think that he's overrated. So, it's put up or shut up, but there's Mahomes, there's Burrow in the AFC. It's going to make it hard. Jalen Hurts, that contract.
Well, can I counter real quick on Josh Allen for a second? We got plenty of time. Can I counter on Josh Allen? So you mentioned the turnovers, right? Unless your name is Patrick Mahomes, I mean, quarterbacks turn the football over is kind of my point. And Josh Allen, what he does with his legs and his arms and the numbers, is it just possible that maybe they haven't properly constructed the best team around him? Like if Buffalo wins the AFC East and they get bounced again in the divisional round or a wild card, or maybe they missed the playoffs, you have to start looking at the head coach, do you not? It's just not always on the quarterback, even though we want to attach the 2 together.
Yeah, Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, the roster they put together, you got to wonder, were they kind of hard-headed because they let guys go that they probably should have kept, particularly Edmonds, the linebacker, who went to the Bears, and then they lost both their safeties this year. One of them's down in Miami, and then we always point to Diggs. So definitely the cast around him is not the best. And Q, though, it's okay to throw some interceptions. He led the NFL in interceptions over like the last 4 years. So he's got to tune it up, not force the ball. And I think not having Diggs there is going to help, because I think a lot of times Diggs was in the huddle saying, "Get the ball to me," even though he's in double, triple coverage. So Allen's growing, and I think he's an MVP candidate. So you definitely have to think he's going to be in the mix in that category. So I think he's going to have a good season. Jalen Hurts, when he got that huge contract, the expectations went up very high on him. Yes, he led the Eagles to the Super Bowl and everything, but as you said, is he a one-hit wonder? Last year, 23 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, forcing the ball. Now, conversely to what happened with Allen, Harry Roseman has put together quite a group for the Eagles. Dotson coming over from the Commanders now, and he's with Brown and Smith. And then they bring over Saquon as well. This offense is loaded. So no excuses for Jalen Hurts. And you're right. If he can't get it done this season, the bullseye is definitely going to be on him and Nick Sirianni.
D chimes in on Facebook. Q. So let me get this right. Hurts is the only quarterback not allowed to have weapons. And again, the sarcasm, right? I mean, listen, these quarterbacks, you have to have weapons in the NFL. You have to, right? I mean, it's just Brock Purdy has weapons. Patrick Mahomes has weapons. Josh Allen has weapons. You have to have weapons, man. And if your offense isn't going to carry you, then you have to rely on the defense. Maybe that's going to be the case, say, with the New York Jets and their defense and Aaron Rodgers. But point being, I can't, again, I cannot for the life of me, I can't comprehend this overrated. Is it possible that some of these guys maybe arrived a little too early? Is it possible that the worst thing that happened to the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts was that second year, make it to a Super Bowl and come up just short? Because after that, he got paid, and then he comes back, and by all accounts, he had a down year, and so did the team.
Yeah, Q, and you hit the nail on the head in terms of what I'm thinking of. A lot of these quarterbacks are overpaid, and they're not worth the money. In terms of the portion of the cap they're taking up, the high expectations on them. Tua's getting all that money. You talk about Jalen Hurts, Trevor Lawrence, you can throw him there as well. And when you're making that amount of money, the scrutiny is going to come. And, it's a what have you done for me lately league. And particularly everybody's looking at the Eagles swoon at the end of last season, losing 6 out of 7 games and looking bad in the playoff game. And then Tua, he didn't really even play that well in his playoff game, so expectations are high, and fans want results when a guy's getting paid so much money.
Yeah, speaking of which, all right, sell me on Dak Prescott actually getting paid $60, $70 million. Like, is there a scenario, is there a case? Do you sit here and say, yeah, you know what? I mean, years ago it was Dak or Carson Wentz, go figure, but I know it's not our money, but is Dak Prescott going to be a $60, $70 million quarterback? And if so, how much of that will come back and bite the Dallas Cowboys in the ass?
Jerry Jones has kind of been coy about this whole situation. And, we always said there's 3 guys that got to get paid. CeeDee Lamb, who just got that 4-year, $136 million contract. Micah Parsons, who they have to keep him.
Yep.
And then Dak Prescott. So I always thought, they keep 2 out of the 3, and I think Dak's going to be the odd man out. I just don't think, in terms of Jerry Jones's eyes, that he wants to pay him that type of money. And you can't blame him. Yes, Dak is a very good quarterback in a regular season, but comes up short in the playoffs. And I think they've seen enough of his body of work to know that he's just not going to change, even though he has weapons like CeeDee Lamb and Ferguson's emerging tight end. So I think Dak doesn't get paid.
All right, Steve on Facebook chimes in. Q, Wilson's always been the starter. This is the best decision for the Steelers and Justin Fields. Russ gives the team the best quarterback play. All right. Steelers should, though, incorporate Fields into the offense here and there. I'm not saying do what Sean Payton did for years when he kept pulling out Drew Brees for the other quarterback. And forgive me, I forget his name.
Jason Hill.
Yeah, no, not me, the texter. But
I'm helping him out.
There goes my There goes I was locked in on this. I'm sorry, Steve, but yes, to your point, they should incorporate him during the season. Lloyd, now you may interject to the Facebook comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I do agree with him, and it was funny. I was talking on my show with Mike Tanier about this. He thinks they will have a package for Justin Fields. I'm not going to say they're going to use him total slash mode like Taysom Hill or Cordell Stewart was back in the day for the Steelers, but I think he will have some red zone packages that they'll get him out there. But the key is obviously who is going to protect the football, and you know, it's going to be interesting because Russell Wilson, he's got to get it done. He's on a 1-year contract, and they can step away from him very easily, and then you start to wonder, is his career going to be over? So this may be his last chance in the NFL. And then Justin Fields, he's on a 1-year deal as well. So Steelers got a lot of decisions to make. And, you know, I think the decision to draft Kenny Pickett in the first round, that definitely is biting them, you know. And we've seen Pickett, we talk about cuts, you know. The way he played, I thought McKee may get the backup job for the Eagles because Pickett just did not show anybody much in the preseason.
All right. You know, I'm and 4 o'clock, by the way, straight up on the East Coast, 60 in the book, 60 to play with on a Wednesday edition of The Drive. Rich Cuneo and Nasiri, Angel Martinez behind the glass, producing the show. Coming at you on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, the game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town. Lloyd Vance, the doctorate.
It's a master's.
Host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football every Monday, 8 to 9, of course, joins me to co-host Back Your Play during the week, our sports gambling pod. Kind enough to join us. You know I'm a conspiracy theorist, so I will throw this out and see if you want to pick it up a little bit. And again, if the listening audience also wants to chime in as well, you can. 727-858-6650. So, Cleveland. We already talked about Deshaun Watson, the guaranteed contract, the guaranteed money. So is it possible, now just hear me out, that the reason that they didn't re-sign Joe Flacco is maybe Watson was threatened by a veteran guy? Can't play on the same level, even though Watson is not the same quarterback he once was. Hence, now the rumor is that, okay, we're basically trying to get Jameis Winston out of town. But if you think about it, Jameis Winston has played a lot of football in his career. Now, granted, Jameis Winston is a quarterback that will absolutely, as a fan, drive you batty. But Jameis Winston has also had 4,000-yard seasons. Hell, he had a 5,000-yard season where he threw for 33 touchdowns, even though he had the 30 picks. So be it. But is it possible the rumor, the conspiracy theory, the thought is they're going to try to move Jameis Winston because Deshaun Watson's threatened by Jameis Winston, and Deshaun Watson realizes if he struggles, Jameis Winston is going to overtake him?
Well, definitely last year, Watson, you could see he was kind of perturbed the way Flacco came in there and he wanted the chance to maybe come back and play. And they said, no, we're going to stick with Flacco. And that defense really carried that team. And most starters over the years that I've talked to, they are kind of threatened by if there's a solid backup behind them. You know, they'd rather have a guy like a Coy Detmer type that's just, you know, carry the clipboard and they don't really need to worry about him as a potential starter. And yes, Jameis has started in this league. And, you know, I've seen enough of him as a starter, especially last couple of years with the Saints, that he shouldn't be threatened by him. But Watson definitely is not the player he used to be, and he probably has some comfort level with a young quarterback like DTR there, a guy who kind of can mentor rather than Winston's coming in there. They may not have established a relationship. And then I always wonder about Watson's relationship within the locker room there because – you know, the Browns, they're a team that's built around their defense.
It's Scott chimes in from Ohio Q. That is the dumbest, as you say, friggin' take I've ever heard come out of your mouth. I was at the Titans games last year. I saw Watson pressing in the first quarter. He settled down a little bit, had a decent game. Once he settles down next week when the season starts, I think he'll be a very good quarterback. 3,500 yards, 20-plus touchdowns, and lead the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs is fine. That will silence critics such as yourself. There's absolutely no way he feels threatened by crab legs. So he listens to the show because I refer to Jameis Winston as crab legs. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. But again, I'm throwing it out there. If I'm the Giants, I offer a 6th or 7th round draft pick for Jameis Winston to back up Daniel Jones.
Yeah, and we just saw, Tennessee Titans, they got a 7th round pick from the Packers and Willis over there. So, there is market for some of these guys. And you'll see some movement in this last week before the season starts on some of these lower guys on the roster. So that is very possible that, they're talking to agents, they're talking to teams potentially to get Winston out of there. And he really hasn't been there that long. So, he hasn't made a lot of roots there. So there may be a chance somebody else takes a flyer on him.
Mel Dub on X, that's a ridiculous rumor, Q. It's unsubstantiated and ridiculous. It would even come out of your mouth. Worry about your shitty Giants. I have nothing to worry about. I already told you they're going to stink. We got to get into wins with totals next week, so we will dive into that. I still cannot wrap my head around this new kickoff rule. It's annoying to me, to be quite honest.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot to get used to, but I think there's going to be more bigger plays, and that's what you have to look at, because 70-some% of kickoffs were getting down in the end zone, and now you're going to get guys trying to take it out, and it's going to be exciting, and then it's going to help some of these guys on the lower end of the roster that are just kick returner mostly only. So it's going to be fun.
All right, my friend, a lot of football to dive into. Hey, there we go. D from AC. Personally think Jerry was trying to tank for Shedeur. Problem with the Cowboys is for years they restructure contracts and it bites them in the end because at some point you got to pay up. I think the Cowboys indeed appreciate it, pal. And thanks for tuning in and support. I think they're going to be a really bad team this year. And I know it sets in play, right? It sets in motion either Dion or Shedeur or Belichick and Shedeur. And, I kind of dubbed, suck for Shedeur, suck for Sanders. Maybe the Giants do it. I don't know. I mean, it's hard. I think it's very hard to tank in the NFL. We've talked about it, right? Sometimes you just have miss with draft picks. The NBA, you can put slop out there and no one's really going to notice. The NFL, you put slop out there, guys are going to get hurt. They got to play, man. It's their livelihood. So, but the latter part, I agree, right, with some of these contracts. I just believe the Dallas Cowboys are going to take, and they brought in Cook, right, to back up Elliott, which does that really, mean anything? Yeah. But I believe they are going to have a really just bad season.
And I'm thinking third spot in the NFC East. And to get to the caller's point, I think that team is not going to ascend or do anything until Jerry Jones decides he is not the GM of that team. He should give up that title, bring somebody in that's running a team, fix the draft, fix those contract situations you talk about, et cetera, because he's about paying guys for past performance, and it's time for him to step away from that title and just be the owner of the team.
Yeah, you're right, but I think they also know that, listen, when you get, there's certain points, whether you're a head coach, GM, or you're an owner, especially in the NFL, you look around and sometimes you just got to take a step back and you have to say, this is not working.
Right.
And I know a ton of Dallas Cowboys fans, and they even told me last year they want them to collapse. They want to have them implode and blow it up. Jerry Jones is never selling this team because he's making wads of cash and money. Say what you want about Jerry Jones, right? But he's been broke and he's been rich. I mean, right? And in between. So he's not giving up that power. He just refuses to do it. Now, if you bring in a Belichick and you open up the checkbook, you might have to. You might have to relinquish a little bit of power. That is why I think it's fascinating. This might have worked out perfectly for Belichick because he's doing the TV stuff. He's hosting a pod. You know, he's got to wear a collar, no more of the hoodie on TV, right? Freshen up a little bit, you know, clean yourself up, so to speak. But now you get a year off. You get to survey the playing field. You get to look around the NFL. And it's horrible to say, I know it is, in friggin' August. We haven't even hit Labor Day. And you already start to get the wheel spinning in your mind what teams are really going to be downtrodden and what head coaches are really going to be in trouble. Well, I think if the Giants go south, Shane and Daboll might be out of a job. Now, you never want that to happen. And again, it's horrible to even bring it up or say, but this is what we do for a living when it comes to sports talk. So now you got Belichick surveying the field a little bit, looking around 32 teams. And there's a reason, you know, it probably was the best thing to happen to him to not get the Atlanta gig. But we know he's always had this appreciation and love for the New York Giants. Then you got Jerry Jones in Dallas. Wouldn't that make a splash opening up the checkbook? I mean, so again, I never say never. Hell, Tom Brady might come out of the booth after. You just never know. Stranger, crazier things have happened in the NFL. And that's why I think a team like the Giants are worth watching because of the head coach and GM. I think the Eagles are a team worth watching because of the head coach and the franchise quarterback. Dallas is worth watching because they're Dallas, the owner, the head coach is on the hot seat, and a quarterback who's playing in his final year of his contract. So after a while, you say to yourself, Lloyd, man, it ain't working. We got to change it up. And maybe that's going to be the case with some of those teams.
I definitely agree with you. And that's what Belichick's trying to do, change his image. Because a lot of people say, all right, he was old curmudgeon, got stuck in his ways with the Patriots. He wants to maybe relate more to these younger players, and he's going to have his opportunities. I think there will be three key openings coming up all season that somebody going to look at him. So I definitely think he's going to have his opportunities. And some of those teams you named, their coaches are in a hot seat before they even kick off the ball. So there's going to be some movement.
I'm telling you, by the time October runs around, that helmet's going to be a mini helmet. Remember those little mini helmets? Like, it's probably going to be the size of a freaking, it's probably going to be the size of a freaking keychain.
As long as you don't smash it, I guess, right?
No, I don't. Listen, the days, no, that's, when you see these goofballs on TV breaking TVs, that's just stupid. Yeah, let me go out and spend $3,000 and then break a friggin' TV because my team lost. What are you, a jerk off? Like, seriously, grow up. I gave that stuff up. I had that moment in my life where it was live or die with what the Giants do. Now it's just, you know, it's a good beach day. I'm going to the beach.
There you go.
All right, Lloyd Vance, and my buddies are going to kill me for saying that. Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, every Monday, 8 o'clock on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game, will be contributing to The Drive with Q, and as always, you catch him with me on BYP. Next week, pal, big show, a lot of NFL stuff to get into and previews and predictions. Appreciate a couple.
All right, Q. Thanks for having me on, man.
All right, there you have it. Our good friend Lloyd, 15 past the 4 o'clock hour. We'll take a quickie timeout. We will reset the table. We'll come back on the other side. We encourage you guys to get in the conversation, 727-858-6650. I want to get into this Deion Sanders nonsense too, because I see a lot of thought, a lot of talking heads waxing poetic about Deion Sanders and Coach Prime. And we'll get into that. You got Michigan, little college football. I'll give you some plays as well on the baseball diamond. And we'll kind of reset the table. We'll take you up to 5 on a Wednesday edition of The Drive. Keep it locked in right here on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town.
To some people, the sound of a baby babbling doesn't mean much. But that's not necessarily true. By 6 months, they're combining vowels and consonants. By 9 months, they're trying out different kinds of sounds. And by 12 months, their babbling is beginning to take on some meaning. Especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Early screening and intervention can make a lifetime of difference and unlock a world of possibilities. Take the first step at autismspeaks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
The following is made possible by Dad.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling all over it.
The dad joke. Corny, groan-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
Why do you have to be careful when it's raining cats and dogs? Because you might step in a poodle.
And kids that spend more time with their dads grow up to be smarter, more successful.
Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding.
And with any luck, funnier adults.
Why didn't the skeleton go to the dance? Because he didn't have anybody to go with.
Dad jokes rule. So take a moment to make a moment and give your kid a laugh. It's as easy as going to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
That's really funny.
I know you're telling me to go. I know you're telling me to go. Relax, relax. There's no liner. I know. That's why I went like this. Yeah. What do you got? What do you got? Oh, there. Oh, look at that. We had Angel for a moment. He will be joining us momentarily, 727-858-6650, which gives me time to get into my Deion Sanders conversation. So, and by the way, dollars to donuts, as soon as I start getting into it, Angel's going to pop up and interrupt me because that's what he does. But anyway, so I don't know if you guys saw the story, but Deion Sanders decided I'm not going to take questions from a Denver Post columnist, Sean Killer, anymore. And he basically said, you know, I don't like the nicknames, this, that, the other thing. We're going to ban them. Colorado decides we're going to ban this guy. You're not going to have access, or I'm not going to actually ask. I will not answer any questions anymore, right? I'm just, you're not going to fire off questions. We're not going to ask. And it's a situation where this is where we're at right now. So you've got a very, let's just say, boisterous, braggadocious, all-time great NFL player burst onto the scene after Jackson State, now at Colorado, had the buzz earlier in the season, and everyone was loving it. Coach Prime, here we go. We're buying into it, you know, but now he's got to keep these receipts. If you're not being positive, if you're being negative, that's part of, again, what we do in media. You're allowed to be critical. You're allowed to be fair. You should be objective. You shouldn't be biased, and you're allowed to have an opinion. But I think to go as far as to ban a columnist is weak. I really do. I think it shows immaturity from Deion Sanders. I really do. I think it puts more of a bullseye's back on Colorado. I also think that, again, if you're willing to dish it and take it, then you should be able to have someone dish it to you as well, right? Or dish it and not take it. And that's the problem. So now, again, that the Denver Post is informed that they're no longer allowed to ask questions, or questions are not be allowed to be asked from Sean Keeler. I mean, that's, you know, so I don't know, man. When Deion likes the nicknames, it's okay. So Colorado is citing phrases like false prophet, deposition Deion, Planet Prime, Bruce Lee of BS, the Deion Kool-Aid, and Cirque. Okay, but love him when we're calling him Prime, Coach Prime, Deion Neon, right? I mean, the guy's known him for a long time. That's the problem. Now, all of a sudden, you're not allowed to ask any questions. You're not allowed to fire back. And the SID and the athletic department are on board with this, it is a weak ass look by Deion Sanders and Colorado. It really is. I mean, come on, man. If you're dishing it out, you got to be able to take it and in a fun way. And I don't think it's chiding. I don't think it's malicious. I don't think it's with intent. I don't think that's the case. Now, this columnist, man, you got your moment. Good for you. But I think it's I think it's lowbrow. I think it's kind of disgraceful. I think it's immature that you're basically, you're giving, by you banning a columnist, you are actually now buying into what the columnist was saying when he's talking about, again, BS in a circus. And now you're making it about, again, the school, the team, and you, and ultimately all about you. And that's the other issue, right? I mean, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. I'm reading this. Colorado basically said that the Hall of Famer suffered a serious sustained personal attacks. So this columnist is still permitted to attend football events, but Deion Sanders and all our members of the program will refuse to take his question. Why doesn't he go? Seriously. And the funny thing is his contract dictates he's only required to speak to mutually agreed upon media. So Colorado put that into the contract. They signed off on that. Shame on them. Shame on them. So you want to be ready for prime time? Then you got to deal with this nonsense. But he's not ready for prime time because all it is a little chiding, showing a lot of immaturity, a lot of thin skin. That's all that is. I mean, waxing poetic and calling out every friggin' reporter that's writing something negative. And now you want to be prime time? And again, what you're doing, you're trying to be a bully right now. You're trying to take away someone's livelihood. If I'm that columnist, be damned, I'm not covering Colorado. Seriously. Come on. You're going to treat a reporter like that? It's ridiculous. And Colorado knew exactly what they were doing when they were hiring Sanders. Really. So you go 4-8 in your debut season and you come out of the game, win a couple games, and then you basically just fall to pieces late. So the expectations are going to be high now. I know Colorado is a highly bet on. People are looking at Colorado to make a run, maybe get to a bowl game, maybe win 6-7 games, maybe win their conference. Not going to go that far just yet. But the fact that you're banning a reporter is pretty bad. Seriously. The fact that you're banning a reporter and having a little fun, right? And he's known you for a long time. And you just don't want, you don't want someone to chide at you like that. I mean, that team's got other stuff going on. That team's got other stuff going on. Right? And again, I don't care. That's great. You're contributing, you're charity, you're doing all this stuff. But we're talking about being a head coach, being a leader of men, representing the university and yourself. And now you don't want to engage in a reporter. That's weak. That's weak. And I get it. The masses can't get enough of Colorado. You look at the week 1 odds, Thursday night game in Boulder. Here we go. Public's back in Colorado. Here we go. And away we go. Come on. Here's the thing. If you're going to make that, if you're going to come out and you're going to say what you said, right? So again, you're obviously interested in what the reporter has to say about you. You can sit there and say you're not interested in what anyone says about you, but in the same breath you are. So you're talking out of both sides of your mouth, Deion. And I like Deion Sanders. I think Deion Sanders is great for college football. I think it was great for Jackson State. I think he's going to be great for Colorado. And I'd love to see them have a good season. I mentioned this last year. He's scaring the shit out of college football at the time. He really is. But you also have to understand, if you want to be in the limelight, if you want to be prime time, spotlight's going to be on you. And you have to basically pick and choose your battles. When you go against the media like that, the media is always going to have the last word. The writers are always going to have the last word, Deion. That's all I'm saying. That's it. And again, if you know the guy and you know the relationship and all of a sudden you're souring on it, Not every reporter is going to kowtow. It's just not happening. Not every reporter is going to kiss your ass. Not every reporter is going to talk glowingly about Colorado if they lose by 40 points. They shouldn't. I mean, now you're in the spotlight, man. You're in the spotlight, and you're going to get the primetime games. You're going to get that spotlight. This is what you asked for. This is what you want. Now, you got to sell out. You got to show up. You got to play. You got to win games. Because if you don't, you know what's going to happen? This same guy that you basically banned and other reporters for the Denver Post and national guys, they're going to say, is Deion over his head? What's wrong with Colorado? Are they all glitz and glamour? Are they all sizzle and no sauce? They're going to get on you. Winning cures all that. And last year, when they opened up the season with a bang. And they were surprising people, man. I mean, they took college football by storm early on. They did. They took college football by storm. When they beat TCU, then they beat Nebraska, and then they had that crazy win where I friggin' fell asleep and they beat Colorado State in, 2 overtimes? This was a 3-0 squad. They lost to Oregon. They got hammered. They had a game against USC where they could have won. They didn't. They bounced back against Arizona State. And then after that, at 4-3, everything just, or 4-2, they had to really, should have beat Stanford. Got outclassed by UCLA. Oregon State pulled away. Arizona outscored them, no defense. And they had injuries. I get it. Washington State put up 56. And then Utah beat them and they lost, 5 in a row? 6 in a row to close the season. They were 4-2. They finished 4-8. So all eyes are going to be on Coach Prime in Colorado, and it'll start North Dakota State. Here we go. Thursday, pencil it in. All eyes are going to be on Colorado. And of course, 8 o'clock. Where do you think that game's going to be aired? There you go. ESPN. Mission accomplished. 727-858-6650, 727-858-6650, 30 past the 4 o'clock hour. We'll take you up to 5 o'clock straight up. Get to some more of your tweets. You guys can chime in with your comments as well as on Facebook. Oh, look who's back. Tell a friend. Look who's back. Do I need to refresh, or you want to pop up? You want to chime in, or you just want to be the man behind the glass?
Oh,
hey.
Yeah, unfortunately, the main tower went down, and what was happening was when you and Lloyd were on my end, you guys were streaming and talking just fine. On my end, I was getting staggered. So when I was trying to tell you to come back on, it's because I had to switch over to the backup system in order for the radio and everything else to kind of keep going. So yeah, it's been, and it started unfortunately after Pete's show. Apparently did it during my show, and it just kept going here to now. So I'm on the backup system, and then it should make it cruise it through until the very end of the show here. But it's driving me nuts.
Yeah, I mean, you've been floating in and you've been floating out. That's we have to we'll have to talk about the powers of be regarding that. 727-858-6650. Did you read that overrated list in the NFL with the quarterbacks, or you were
that
just
was
like,
beyond stupid? Beyond stupid. What 103 players, number one, even participated in something dumb as that? And then you got what? Josh Allen as number one, Jalen Hurts tied for second, Kyler Murray's in there. I mean, I don't freaking. That's just dumb. Like who's trying to stir a pot before the NFL season even kicks off?
Well, I mean, you want something to talk about. I mean, all right, you're an Eagles fan. Is Jalen Hurts an overrated quarterback?
I plead the fifth.
No, you have to answer that. Come
on. Is he over? There's times, yes, where he is overrated.
Okay. So how do you define overrated?
Your performance should show what you're all about on the field. Off the field could be a whole different story, but on the field, I want to see the product out there. So to me, if it's a constant talk about Jalen Hurts and putting him up on the super pedestal, I don't think Josh Allen is on and I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm not a Bills fan, so I don't know what happens out there in Buffalo, but to constantly put Jalen up there on this ultra illustrious pedal and look at him like he's a freaking messiah or something else, and to see what happened come last season, and yes, I will still refer to last season until I see the first game of a regular season, then to me, yeah, it's overrated because enough with the talk, enough with, it's more than the obvious that him and Nick Sirianni are not getting along, period. But
what are you basing that on?
There, you can see the mannerisms. You can see the body expressions between the both of them. There's no chemistry there. They're just doing like, he's my friend. I'm here to do my job. I'm getting paid. As soon as the cameras are off, fuck them.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. I think maybe there's a disconnect, but I mean, look, I mentioned this. You don't have to. Again, you don't have to get along. There has to be mutual respect, but I can't sit here now and say that they just can't stand each other. That might be the case. Now, if they're 2-6 after 8 games and Jalen Hurts is struggling, again, it's a Philadelphia market. It's the Philadelphia Eagles, NFC East, 2 years removed, Super Bowl appearance. Then I think all bets are off. We don't want to, the hypotheticals or speculate. I can't see them a lot of people believe the Philadelphia Eagles are poised for a very big season. I am not one of them, and it has nothing to do with being a Giants fan because I already told you the Giants are going to stink. I think Washington's coming up. I think Dallas is going to struggle. You might get a season where 9 wins you the NFC East. I didn't like what I saw from the team to close out last season, and I certainly didn't like what I saw from the team in the offseason, and including, I should say, the playoff loss, the wild card game against Tampa Bay. They brought in players. They made the move. They brought in Saquon. Okay, fine. They upgraded here and there, but they also lost some centerpieces, some veterans. I feel as though the Kelsey loss is huge. It's going unaddressed. I think there's something to be said when you have a leader of the squad no longer there. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And I know you mentioned this a week or so ago, Angel. If they turn around and they have a slow start and they say they lose in Brazil against Green Bay, after 1 week, everything's going to hit the fan. But it is a long season in the NFL. But I'm kind of in line with you. It's like with Buffalo. I feel like there's an issue with Buffalo as well that I can't pinpoint, that I can't put my finger on. I think there's an issue in New York. I think Brian Daboll, it was pretty evident and clear, and I understand Hard Knocks, HBO, they want you to see what they want you to see, but it was pretty apparent he doesn't want to ride with Daniel Jones, right? They wanted May, they wanted Daniels, they wanted to trade down. He's not a believer in Daniel Jones. He was a couple of years ago, and then he got hurt. But I see that if I were to say the Giants, Eagles, Dallas, which team implodes first, I think it's going to be the Giants. Dallas is probably going to do it late. Maybe in the middle of the season, it could be the Philadelphia Eagles. But I think early on, if the Giants are 1-5, 1-6, and Daniel Jones is hurt or struggling again, you will see the calls for Brian Daboll to be fired, Joe Schoen to be fired, and to just start over from scratch. And again, when you start to go through GMs and head coaches, when you go from Coughlin to McAdoo to Shermer to Judge to Daboll, and here's another thing, Belichick's in the booth. Belichick's on TV. And I don't know if you heard the spot with Lloyd, but it almost seems like if the Giants were to part ways with Brian Daboll, and again, we have to let the season play out. We're just, hypotheticals, even though I don't like to do that. Bill Belichick's name is going to be the first one to pop up. Yeah. The NFC East, all eyes will be on the NFC East this year because even Washington is a team that people think is going to take the next step. So
I don't think to kind of piggyback what you were saying there, I don't foresee this being a huge season for the Eagles. I just don't. There's nothing that has convinced me since and by all means, I'm not trying to say that, I'm freaking salty or anything else like that. Cause I'm just telling you the gut feeling is that this team, and you mentioned with Jason Kelce not being around, that leader is no longer in that locker room. And now you're just looking around to where everybody's just, who's in charge? Who's our leader? Who's the captain?
That's where the quarterback has to step up. That's where the quarterback that makes
he would have to, but he didn't step up come last year. Listen, if you are jumping on a plane and you are blatantly,
man, you got to let that, you got to move.
No, but it's not. But the whole thing is, it's not even about letting it go though, because the whole thing is that he has not shown me anything during. You don't hear me talking about the Eagles at all during. They played 3 games. Have you heard me talking anything about the Eagles?
Oh, he hasn't played in the preseason. No one's really talking about the preseason.
But it's not even that though. It's just there is nothing there that Jalen Hurts has convinced me that there's a change from the end of last season to now coming into camp. There's nothing that's telling me any different. If the Eagles lose against Green Bay, and in my gut, I got a funny feeling that they are going to lose in Brazil against Green Bay, it's going to be all bets are off.
After one game,
not after one, not meaning like the season's over. I'm just saying that now the critics and everybody else are going to be like, are we seeing the remembrance of last season? Because to me, it's just if the Eagles, if Jeffrey Lurie thought that Nick Sirianni was the problem, you have basically revamped that office, right? The only person you left is who? Nick Sirianni. So we've heard now Tua, the whole, thing with him and the Dolphins, whatever, with his former colleague, told him her story. But to me, there's nothing that Nick is still worried about the freaking goofy t-shirts that he's getting from, and come on, man, be serious, be a head coach. There is nothing there that he's shown to me that you have grown from the loss of last season to the beginning of training camp. Nothing. So to me, it's more of the same. And then who is really going to step up the season? I'm going to be the worst critic when it comes to the Eagles this season. Eagles fans, just letting you know, I'm going to be on them like white on freaking rice, because to me, there is nothing. They have proven nothing to me that they've learned from the mishaps of last season coming up. And I don't give a shit if it's freaking training or not. I'm just saying when it comes next week, Friday night, Brazil, we'll see. Matter of fact, they can stay there if they end up coming out with the loss. I'll make sure I'll take the spark plugs out of the plane. Yes, there's no spark plugs in the plane. People relax.
Jalen Hurts, when they were 8-1 and they beat Dallas, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games. Mariota played in the last game of the season. Jalen Hurts cracked 300 yards 0 times. 1 time, 301 in the game that you could have called a penalty late against Saquon Barkley. The Giants lost that game. And I'm pulling up the turnovers. And he only played a couple snaps to close out the season against the Giants. He didn't play well in Tampa Bay. Whether people think he was hurt or not, whether the offense took a step back. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and panic after one game. I just can't do that. I think it would be foolish to do that, to be quite honest.
No, but it's not even a panic though, Q. It's not a panic. It's the level of frustration because listen, the Giants know right what they need to do. They know for a fact this is not going to be their season. Commanders know it's not going to be their season. But hey, everything can be proven wrong.
Let me correct you. The Giants actually are acting as if they can compete this year because of the moves they made in the offseason.
Okay,
and I think that's the furthest from the truth.
All right. So you take a look at the Eagles on paper, right? Right now on paper, they look to be what? Paper Bowl champions, not Super Bowl champions, Paper Bowl champions at this point. But there is nothing that this front office, including from Howie Roseman, you can go on Philly radio and everybody, Eagle season, EAGLS, whatever. To me, there's been nothing changed from the end of the 2023-24 season going into 2024-2025 season. Nothing.
Well, two things. I would suggest not doing that because you get dumber listening to Philly Sports Talk Radio. That's number one. Number two is, I know what you're saying. You're saying if they struggle out of the gate, then everyone's going to talk about the hangover, it's spilled in, the dropping 5 of 6 and not showing up
right
against Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
But again, one game, you knock the rust off. It happens. Green Bay's not a slouch. Now, if we're in October and this team is struggling, or if we're 4 or 5 games in and they lost to Tampa, they lost to Cleveland, and they're 2-2, 2-3. What's going on with Jalen Hurts? Sirianni doesn't look happy. A.J. Brown is pissed off. Saquon Barkley's not getting his touches. That is a different story.
Right.
And without overstating this, but you have to make it a point of reference or a talking point, they brought in, if you look at the Eagles coaching staff for 2024, they brought in 2 coordinators that have what? Head coaching experience.
Right.
And I know people will tell me, you're making a big deal about this. You're always making a big deal about that. I really don't believe that to be the case. I think when you bring in 2 new guys, it's almost as though then what the hell do you need Sirianni for? I mean, you're bringing in Vic Fangio that has connections with the Eagles, and you're also bringing in Kellen Moore. These guys have had head coaching experience. Then you bring in a couple members that are going to return with new titles. That typically happens in the NFL. If it really gets bad, you're setting a scenario up. And again, forgive us for if you're listening, tuning in, but sports talk, we do this sometimes. You're setting a scenario up where if they're 2-5, 3-5, 3-6, and they just lost a bad game to say, I don't know, they play here. We're in November, and they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They're 10 games in, and they just at home, they got embarrassed 31-13 against the up-and-coming Washington Commanders, right? And now they're 3-7, 4-6. You're asking, heads would be on fire, heads would roll. You're asking an owner, or you're wondering if an owner would make a head coaching change, and we'd have to do a deeper dive. Like, what are we looking at? A team that offensively has struggled. They didn't show up. They're blowing games. They're getting blown out. It's different. Andy Reid, they quit. They quit for Andy Reid. They went up to New York and lost 42-7 against the Giants. Chip Kelly, they had the bad loss against Tampa, the bad loss against Detroit, the bad loss against Miami. He looked like a dead man walking. You knew his time was done. Sirianni is a season plus removed from taking his team to the Super Bowl. So I don't know how much of that you factor in a potential decision where if it does go south, you get rid of him. You and I and a lot of people that have tuned in and a lot of guests we've had on, we all believe that Sirianni should have been fired after last season.
Yep.
Because of the slide, the antics, the tantrums, the theatrics, and the disconnect with the franchise quarterback. But now that you brought in these coordinators, if they are a 3-5, 3-6 team, then yeah, maybe that happens. My man Angel down there in Tampa, we like to call that, he's buffering right now as we speak. He's buffering 727-858-6650. He is buffering. There he is. All right. We'll take you're all good. We'll take a quick timeout. We got about 10 to play with on this Wednesday edition of The Drive, 727-858-6650. Don't forget, log on SR1029thegame.com. Download the app, Sports Radio 1029 FM, The Game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town. 15 to play with.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless. and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Don't forget to get social with us. Follow Q at Rich Q on Q. And now, back to Q.
About 30. What's the problem over there, man? I DM'd you, and you're ready to break something. Internet is absolutely shit. First of all, primero, relate, hombre. Tómatelo con calma. Relax. It's not the big deal. You want to break stuff, and you're dropping F-bombs on the air? The Drive with Q? Kids are coming back, getting ready to go to school. Well, wait, next one.
Okay. Have you heard these kids talk now? Yeah.
What do you have, bad weather out there today?
It's turning. I mean, there's thunder right now that's rolling through. It sounds like barrels crashed on top of the house. And then a couple of days ago, Spectrum had some sort of weird nonsense that's going on. It's you know me more than anybody. In the same way, like my producer here, I love things to go perfectly fine. And then it started earlier with like right after Pete's show, thank God it went fine. I think maybe the last 2 minutes it started acting up. Yeah. When I went on, it decided it just wanted to. There's nothing worse than you listen to a show and it's frustrating.
That's like me when I would call you and I would drive through those air pockets, and I'm always trying to play it off like it was your phone.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Because I used to tell my friends back home when we used to work together. So I used to, what has he got? Metro PCS, was it Cricket? So I was on Sprint for years. Then I switched over to Cricket, and people, they used to laugh and they were like, why'd you switch over to Cricket? Because I could go out to the county and places where Sprint would fall off. Cricket, I went every stinking where with Cricket, and it was just fine. Right. Then, I had friends who were on Metro PCS, and it used to be the big joke, like, oh, what do you got, Metro PCS phone? That's now funny. Down here in Florida, by the way, AT&T, who I'm with, decided up north to take a crap again today. I don't know what the deal is, but it decided to take another crap today. And then now Spectrum, in their infamous ways, decided that today's a good day just to screw around with everybody. So I went to the backup system thinking obviously the mainframe was going down. No, it looks like Spectrum is going, watch me play with this guy. Put in every other word, send.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. Well, you got to fight through it. But as you always do. Listen, did you see that Gerard Mayo basically picked the starting quarterback, but hasn't told players yet for New England? Did I not tell you it's going to be a cluster with New England?
Yep.
Not tell you. And the fact that he's coming out and he's basically saying, quarterback A is outperforming quarterback B. I mean, why would you even say that? Why would you even say that? I mean, I again, you got a young kid back there. It didn't work out with Mac Jones. Mm-hmm. You know what? Start Drake May. Seriously, start the kid. See what he has. This whole nonsense of you think you're compelled or you owe it to a veteran guy. I mean, if you got outplayed, then guess what? You got outplayed, man. It's like the same nonsense. May basically outplayed Brissett. Now, everyone's sitting there, a couple guys that I know are Pats fans as well. And I don't know where Pete stands on this. And maybe people are saying that, hey, listen, don't rush the kid. I think sometimes you got to throw him. You got to throw him there. And you basically have to just, baptismal by fire, right? That's how I look at stuff. Sometimes you got to go baptismal by fire and just see what they have. And it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. But, again, Sometimes I think these coaches, they outthink themselves.
It's something. I know Jerry from Rhode Island, who he's talking about when because he's up there in New England. He's up in the area. And he's saying he's getting tired of hearing all the Drake May talk. But at the same time, too, I mean, if Jacoby has improved himself, and again, who did you mention not too long ago that he said they're going to wait and see if he fails? They'll start out with what? Russell Wilson?
Oh, Justin Fields.
There you go. So it's the same way, too. So are you going to wait for Jacoby to crap the bed, for...
Well, here's the problem. The head coach came out and already said that May's outplaying Brissett. That's what I'm saying. So, again, you're getting pretty real about your quarterback battle. I appreciate you being transparent. I wouldn't have said it as a first-time head coach with New England, replacing the hoodie. Yeah. I'm not going to come out and say that. I just think you're setting yourself up for failure. No one said anywhere that you have to come out and say that. And now all of a sudden I have to shovel deeper into my comments, and that's the problem, because then you start backpedaling, or you're going to be impressed on the air. Right? I'm going to keep pushing you. Why'd you say that? Listen, Brissett has a clear edge in experience. We understand that. We totally understand that. But I think the Patriots fan is clamoring for something new, right? They want to get the bitter taste, the nasty taste out of their mouth over the last couple of seasons. So I think, listen, I think sometimes you have to have faith and in your convictions and belief and stick with it, period. And I bet you he's probably going to go the Tomlin route, go to the veteran. If the veteran falters, get the kid in there and never look back, as opposed to go with the kid. If the kid struggles, loses his confidence, come on, man, suck it up. Then why'd you draft him in the first place? You did all those tests. You spoke to him. You looked him in the eye. You understand what kind of man he is. If he struggles, he's going to have to overcome adversity. This is life in the NFL. Put your big boy pants on a Sunday. It's not a Saturday anymore. So if you have a couple bad stretches, don't get discouraged. And that's where the head coach has to coach you up. So it's like two schools of thought. Do I start this kid, hope his confidence doesn't waver if he stinks, or do I wait for the veteran who I know eventually is either going to get hurt or struggled?
Right.
That's a nice professional journeyman backup. Nothing more, nothing less. I think sometimes you have to throw these guys in there and see if they sink or swim.
Now, you had mentioned something earlier on X there, most of us who still call it Twitter, about Jameis Winston. Give him a look.
That's more or less for the Giants as a backup. Yeah, why not? I mean, because they pretty much have their quarterbacks in line, so now if it's a backup battle and you can get a 6th-round draft pick, Deshaun Watson's going to be the starter. But if I'm the Giants, yeah, absolutely.
Do you think Deshaun makes it for the entire season?
Health-wise, I feel as though Deshaun Watson, and this is just, again, purely my opinion, when you have that money that's guaranteed, like all of it, and he played okay in a couple starts last year, but then got hurt. I mean, think about it. 2020, he was a full-time starter with the Texans and all this stuff happened. 2-year layoff, sat out. They didn't want to play him. Got hurt with Cleveland, comes back, got hurt again with Cleveland. I don't know, man. I mean, the guy's only 27, 28. I like to think he plays a full season. He could be an effective quarterback. I just don't know, man. I like being motivated. What's the incentive? That's why I mentioned last week, if you're a Deshaun Watson, if you're a Russell Wilson, have some pride. Like, I understand Russell Wilson's career, MVP caliber, Super Bowl champ, going in the Hall of Fame. Deshaun Watson, it's a lot of money in your pocket, man. So it's like, what's my incentive here? I got $230 million, $45 million signing bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Do I give a shit if I go 9 of 23 for $165 and a couple interceptions? I don't know. Jameis Winston is chomping at the bit. He's kind of got that Geno Smith story in him, right? He won the reclamation project, even though he put up some numbers in Tampa and he started more than Geno Smith. But these guys know, man, if they get an opportunity, they want to seize the opportunity. So if I'm Russell Wilson, I want to play lights out so I don't give Justin Fields an opportunity to ever see the field. If I'm Deshaun Watson, if I have any heart, any guts, any gumption at all and pride, I don't want Jameis Winston to see the field. I don't want to see these backups take my spot. I want to go out and I want to perform. I want to play 17 games. I want to play at a high level. I want to conduct myself like a pro, represent the franchise the way I'm supposed to, the way they paid me, and go out and ball and be successful. Now, the other caveat to that, Angel, is that the AFC North is a tough as balls division. Seattle, Baltimore, Cleveland, Pittsburgh's going to win a divisional game here and there. So it's not a given Cleveland's going to have a big season. And to your point, it's not a given that Deshaun Watson's going to be healthy for 17 games. But yeah, I just brought it up because, you banked all that money. What's the incentive? What's the motivation? Going to go out there every Sunday, right? And I already banked $50-something million. I can trip and fall down the steps and I'm still going to get paid $230 million.
Yep. It's nuts. It's really freaking nuts when you think about it. And then I think my other thing is, I know we're going to be closing out here soon, is that how long before either the agents start telling these holdouts, listen, there's only so much I can represent on your behalf. At this point, if you decide you want to just keep getting fined and not, reporting to camp, that's going to be on you. Or are we going to still start seeing more and more and more of this where I understand about the whole thing about getting paid, but now when you're looking at it, and I'll use Haason Reddick for the example here from the Jets. If you're going to lose $10 million plus, even before you get awarded your new contract, does it really make sense?
Well, if you go back a couple of years ago, I think like 2021, the new collective bargaining agreement, holding out was virtually impossible because players were fined $50K each day. Those fines can't be waived off, right?
Right.
So the player now loses an accrued season towards free agency by failing to show up for camp or by leaving camp for more than 5 days. So to your point, the agent signs a contract, they get their commission, right? Boom, boom, boom. They're taken care of. I think it would behoove the player, depending upon the situation, to show up. But in this example of Haason Reddick, Jets pretty much already knew this guy wanted a new contract, right? So I don't know how much of the agent telling him, hey, man, just show up and do what you need to do, put on the uniform, be the good soldier and go out there and play. But the problem now is you got this holdout. He's got no reps in, not working out the rust, not with the team. Is it possible he's going to play week 1? Despite a holdout? In theory, could he suit up for week 1? Yeah. But right now you got an impasse. You got the fork in the road between Reddick and the Jets. And Robert Saleh basically talking about, he might be available for Monday Night Football against the Jets. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with Reddick, but the Jets also knew this. The Jets knew he wanted a new contract. They did, right? And Haason Reddick also, when you go out there and you meet the press for the first time and you basically say, to paraphrase, I got a lot of left in the tank and I'm going to show up and be a pro and I'm ready to go. And then you don't do that. It's a bad look on your face. So,
yep.
All right, brother. Got to start wrapping it up. Good stuff with the text messages. Appreciate you guys chiming in. Also on social. Don't forget, start the week off with Pete Shepard Show Monday to Friday, 7 to 10. Monday to Friday, 7 to 10 with the Pete Shepard Show. Martinez and Company, 10 to 12, Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday. So you'll catch Angel again on Friday and myself as well. The Drive with Q from 3 to 5. Download the app as always. Getting a lot of eyeballs. We appreciate it greatly. Don't forget, you can also check us out, SR1029thegame.com, YouTube channel, Broad Street South, Rich Q on Q. Follow Coastal Sports Network on all social media platforms, Facebook, X, and IG. I guess, as we still call it, Twitter. But with that being said, good stuff from Lloyd Vance hopping on as well. Friday, a lot more NFL. We'll get in some baseball. pennant races, stretch races, updated NL, AL, Cy Young, MVP odds, big series for the Fightins against the Braves. So we'll recap a lot of baseball. We'll get you set for the weekend in college football as well with some of my picks. We got some good guests lined up for the football season, which kicks off next Thursday night. We are absolutely thrilled to be here on the air on Coastal Sports Network and Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, Southwest Florida. You guys are starting to wake up and seeing the kind of content we are providing. So good stuff from Lloyd Vance. Angel Martinez behind the glass producer show, keeping us on the air. We will talk to you on Friday. Have a wonderful Sports Wednesday. As always, be safe, be sound. I'm Rich Quinones. Hasta luego, buen día.